Here's a shot of my older Scag mower. This one probably dates back to 2006. Back then, and even today, most Scag mowers use the spring tensioner you see back there to create perfect belt tension. And this way, when you hit tall grass and you put stress on the belt, the spring absorbs the stress and not the belt. When you start the mower and you turn the clutch on to engage the blade, same thing. The spring takes that shock load and it doesn't go straight to the belt and cause it to stretch. But the problem is on the newer Scag, I guess it's the SW and SWZ mowers, they've actually changed, pardon all the shop disaster mess here, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, all that kind of good stuff. So if you walk back over here to my new mower that I've had for about a year, you will see that this mower doesn't have a spring back here. What Scag has done is just put a rod on here, and you tighten the rod, and instead of the spring basically keeping the belt ideally torqued to the correct rating at all times, no matter the tension that goes to the belt, instead the belt itself now has to do all of that work. And as a result, when you mow through tall grass, or probably every time you turn the clutch on to engage the blades, a shock goes straight to the belt, and as a result you get a lot of belt stretch, like what you see right here. This belt was tightened 4 mowing days ago and it's already too loose. If we had mowed for 5 days, what would have happened is the belt would start to slip, and once it starts to slip, you get burn marks on it. And once you get a burn mark on there, it's like a tire that's out of balance, where the belt actually starts to pulsate, because as that burned section of belt goes through the pulleys, it does not stretch like the rest of the belt, and it just causes it to pulsate, and eventually the belt just flies apart. The other scenario that happens is the belt just stretches and stretches to the point where, even though the belt looks good, it doesn't actually show indications of wear. Like a normal belt will start to get little cracks after maybe 8 to 12 months. What happens when the belts get really stretched is for maybe 3 or 4 weeks we'll be able to tighten the belts and tighten the belts, and then all of a sudden we notice that the belts no longer need to be tightened, and what's happened is the belt is now stretched to its absolute limit. Once you get to that limit, the belt becomes a ticking time bomb where it's just going to break, because it no longer has that elasticity to allow it to absorb a shock load. You start getting little tiny cracks going all the way through the belts. We're getting as little as, we'll say 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 6 weeks on average. If we're lucky, 2 months of use out of a belt. I don't even think it's even that. Where before I'd buy belts and replace them as little as once a year. I'm buying boxes of belts now and having to tighten them every single week. It's just created this nightmare scenario, all created by Scag, which is a good company, but for some unknown reason, on just 2 models, they've done away with their tried and true belt tensioner and swapped to this method of belt tensioner, which, I mean, there's no way they did any R&D on this, or they easily would have seen that it's just not working. You're creating major headaches for the end user. So my goal is to retrofit this mower with the exact same parts that the other style mower has, and to actually have a spring tensioner on this SWZ mower. So hopefully this all works out as I hope. Alright, so you're all in the loop on exactly how this process is working. I've taken the tensioner arm off, and the only part from the old arm we're going to reuse is the spacer that actually goes underneath of the arm. The actual arm length is a little bit different, the holes are drilled differently, and the pulley thickness on this is actually different as well. So for the most part, with the exception of that spacer right there, everything we're going to use were new parts that I had to order. And these particular parts I ordered from Russo Power, because they had, you know, the best prices. My local dealer was supposed to give me the prices and give me a good deal, but he just dropped the ball. I called twice to follow up on it. Nobody called me back. Where normally they do a great job at the place I won't name. But finally I gave up and just ordered from Russo Power. Alright, we're making progress. Here's the other tensioner arm that's off now. And one of the reasons I could not reuse this one is the pulley is not as tall as the other style. And the other style also has an additional hole past the pulley that the spring is going to attach to. But with no issues whatsoever, that went on. That was one of the slightly unknown issues. So next, I'm going to put the spring on and drill a mounting hole over here. Hopefully the center support for the deck doesn't cause an issue. If it does, I'll probably drill another hole, mount it someplace else, and drill another hole in the lid. But if there is an issue, there's no way I'm going to let one little riser bolt be in the way of the progress. Because the way it looks right now, this new spring tensioner idea is definitely going to work. On the old mower, the spring from end to end under tension was 17 inches. So what I've done is taken a breaker bar so I can actually put some tension on the belt to stretch it out, and then I've marked right there where my spot is at 17 inches. Now I'm going to drill through the deck and mount this bolt right here, hang the spring, and hopefully we're in business. All right, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. Everything fit. Come down here. Belt tension is awesome, just like the older mowers. Come around here. Fire in the hole. That is a thing of beauty. I am not having to mess with that goddamn crappy new and unimproved Scag belt tensioning method anymore. All the parts for this cost me 80 bucks, but I already had this wheel right here, which is going to cost me about 35 or 40 bucks. I think it's 40 bucks for my next mower. So if you start from scratch and you're trying to convert either your belt drive, what is that, SZ, or hydro in my case, SWZ mower, to be this spring tensioner, 120 bucks. That's all it takes. And you can probably go a year, never have to check belt tension, because there's nothing to check. It's automatically going to keep your belt tension perfect. Why in the world did Scag go away from this design? Just because they went away from this design, it doesn't mean you have to stick with it. If you check my YouTube channel somewhere, there's actually a video where I also changed the Scag V-Ride mower when they first came out with that. Because when the V-Ride first came out, they had little skinny tires on it. It was putting down too many pounds per square inch, which I'm sure Scag could have put the thing on a scale and easily have known what the allowable amount of pounds per square inch is to prevent easily running, but apparently they didn't. So I also took the first Scag V-Ride mower when it came out and modified it and was able to put wider tires on it. I posted this on Lawn Site, and the next year, lo and behold, Scag copied me. They actually put the exact same tires on the mower. And you think maybe I would get a pat on the back or a thank you or something from Scag? I got nothing. They just copied my idea and improved their machine. And something tells me that maybe next year you will also see this tensioner back on the Scag mower, since I've outed them for a ridiculously horrible design. That's it. If y'all got any questions, go to planscapesolutions.net and shoot me an email. I would tell you my phone number and tell you to text me, but I don't want to put that in a YouTube video. So hopefully some of y'all out there with the SWZ and I'm forgetting the other mower, the belt drive with this setup, hopefully you'll be able to retrofit your mowers, and I have made your life a world easier. Alright, I just went and mowed my lawn, no issues whatsoever. You know, you look at the pulley here, it's right in the middle of the pulley where you want it. The spring's not close to anything. The only thing, one problem I had was I think the bolts I ordered from Russo, they're the hardware, it come loose in the box, so I think one nut is missing, so I just gotta reorder one nut. This probably works just fine, but I'm a stickler for things being exactly how they need to be, so I'll reorder that part. Besides that, I mean, everything went on super easy, no grinding, no modifying anything with the exception of drilling the bolt hole in the deck. You know, I didn't edit this video, I didn't take double takes or retakes, so it is what it is. Not trying to be the most perfect video, but definitely trying to help some of the other guys out there with the fixed deck, hydrostatic or fixed deck hydrostatic mowers, or fixed deck belt drive, I mean. This will make your life a world easier. You'll save so much money in belts by not having to replace belts every 6 to 8 weeks, or worse, you get stranded out there because a belt breaks. I mean, it's just, the existing system is horrible. And Scag, I mean, honestly, they should really just send everybody a kit, or let people go to dealers and retrofit their mowers like what I did here, because what Scag is selling on those mowers right now is just, you know, Scag usually has everything to a high standard, so I just cannot believe they would make this type of mistake and send out a failure-prone modification when they had the tried and true method like what you see here for, I don't even know, 20 years they've had this style on mowers. Works great, all the parts last. My other SWZ mower, the spring is original from about 2006. Pulley's original from 2006. The idle arm, all the bushings, I've replaced nothing. And it lasted that long until I bought the mowers you see here and put these into use the most 2 years back. The only reason I didn't go with a floating deck on this mower as well is the new floating deck mowers that Scag came out with. The thinner decks, the hand controls are harder to push, and they basically made the deck thinner, trying to lower the price point to be more competitive, I guess, with some of the other mowers, which really that's just not going to work. That's why I bought this one that still uses the old, I think it's 16 gauge steel decks, where you can run through multiple engines with this mower, and the deck, everything else will still work just fine. So even though Scag has some issues that I've had to fix myself twice now, I'm definitely still in the Scag corner, because long term you just cannot beat the Scag mowers. The hydros, even the spindles, for instance, on my other mowers, the SWZUs that we ran for, I don't even know, 13 years, 12, 13 years, we never replaced one spindle, never rebuilt a spindle, nothing. They still worked. I think in 13 years, towards the end, we had to replace on the 2 mowers 3 out of the 4 wheel motors for the tire drive methods, you know, went south. But after 12 or 13 years, you gotta expect some stuff, you know, to break. I think the hydrostatic clutches maybe had to be replaced twice. And then, of course, engines after 13 years, we probably went through 3 engines, but we probably put 8,000 to 10,000 hours on those mowers. I mean, it was ridiculous the amount of usage we got. Towards the end, I actually did have one of the 2 mowers. I did have the deck welded, but once again, after that many years, you can't complain. If you had a Toro or anybody else's, God forbid, a John Deere, you'd have bought 3 more mowers in the same amount of time that Scag had lasted. Because compared to some of those other makes and models, the Scag, it definitely still, you know, builds a decent mower.